Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the second book in the Demon War Saga, The Demon Spirit by R.A. Salvatore. So, as usual, we're going to talk non-spoilery thoughts and opinions up front and then jump over to the spoiler section where we can go into more detail. So, with that being said, remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and let's begin. So, The Demon Spirit is the second book in the Demon War Saga, and in a lot of ways, I think this is where the story really starts. The first book to me felt a lot like a lot of setup. So, spoilers for the first book in general. Um, at the end of the first book, our party went and actually faced the demon Bestis Balzabar, the demon Dactyl, and they defeated it. Like, the battle was very difficult and very, and thanks to the sacrifice of Avalon Despris, they actually defeated the demon Dactyl, and he was killed. His body was destroyed. And so, like, now everyone's, of course, very sad because Evelyn died, and it was a sacrifice he is actually very proud to make because he's the most devout member of the Church of Saint Mirabel that they have, really. So, like, and all of his good stuff that he did has left a lasting influence on the members of the church that didn't outright despise him because he was too good at being a church person. So, all of that. So, it was a sacrifice. It was a heavy sacrifice, and it was painful. And I really liked Evelyn, so it was going to suck to not have him back anymore, but the story kind of goes on and it works perfectly. So I really feel like all of that was set up to get to the real true story, because that first book was very much just a straight up physical good versus physical evil kind of thing. And now we get and now we're getting into what I think was R.A. Salvatore's real plan. It's a more existential kind of spiritual conflict happening. It's still good versus evil, but it's more like the influence evil can have on you versus the influence of someone trying to be good. So it's kind of taking it up to a different level. So as the book is called, Demon Spirit, we follow our group after they've dealt with the demon and all that. They're trying to go back home and live a normal life and all that, but they're noticing that all the armies of the demon, all the bloody caps and the Fomorian giants and all these things, they're all still around. They're all still encroaching on human cities and still wreaking havoc and stuff. And after the demon was defeated, they expected him to all those after the demon was defeated, they expected all his forces to retreat, but they're still pushing into human lands and like causing all this havoc and stuff. So they're trying to figure out what's going on. And also because of the fact that we lost Evelyn, during the time when they were on their way to the mountain to go fight the demon, he was teaching Pony, how to use the stones and how to use the magic and stuff. So we lost our primary magical user, but now we're gaining one in Giuseppe and Pony. So she's going to become like the new main magical user person with the stones and stuff. But the church doesn't want her to have the stones because, they're holy relics and artifacts or whatever. So that creates a conflict between our little group and the church. So there's also a lot of stuff that still is happening at the church as a result of everything that was happening with Avalon. So the people that was on Avalon's side really liked all the stuff he was saying and like learned lessons from him and stuff, and they want to continue to teach that stuff and like kind of try to hone the brothers into being as good as Evelyn like just naturally was. Like he was like a true devout pious person, and they want to kind of keep that going, to regain to basically put the church back on this pedestal and all this stuff and have the people representing the church actually be about what they're talking about instead of being like church in real life. So that's the whole thing that's going on. But inside the church, there's people who, of course, want power more than they want to be devout and actually, follow their mandate. So we get a lot of stuff going back and forth between our initial group and stuff going on at the church, because now there's power struggles and stuff going on in the church. And it's really interesting. And I kind of like that stuff. It reminds me a lot of Elantris in a lot of ways, because a lot of the issues in Elantris were religious in nature. They were like, it was a religious kind of thing happening. That was the center of that entire story. So while it's kind of like their religion very much is like their devil is the demon Dactyl. So like a lot of their religion makes a lot of sense. And they have like magical artifacts that's presumed to come from their god and all this stuff. So it makes sense that it would be a religious conflict because it's also the conflict of evil interfering with people's spirits and stuff. So that's kind of the thing that becomes apparent based on just the title of the book. the demon Dactyl, Bestus Bolzabar, as the Tuel call him, he's dead. Yes, his body is dead and destroyed, but his spirit is still there. So you can't completely destroy Bestus Bolzabar until, like, I think that, because the way they did it originally, they basically dropped a volcano on him and like locked him in lava or whatever. So I don't quite understand how that locked his soul into his body at that time. So he was like just, locked down for however many thousand years or whatever. So I don't really get how that differs from what they did before, what they did this time around. But in any case, his spirit is out there messing around with people, and that's pretty much like that's the whole thing. So like we know this from jump. Like it's not even really a spoiler to say it. Like we know this from jump. Like it's not even explicit. It's very much like how you would think of it in real life religious context. It's very much devil on your shoulder situation, and our bad guy, I think is Markwart. I can't say Delibert Markwart or something. I think that Mark Wart. I think that's how you say it. But like he's kind of a power hungry priest guy in the church and stuff, and like he wants more power. And then like you've got Jojona, who is very close to Avalon, who wants to push for the better stuff. So like that's where their conflict and stuff is going. So it's really interesting. I like it a lot, and it's like we're definitely building to more, even though it's separated into two different trilogies. So I think this being the second one in the series, I think it's really, really good. I liked it more than I liked the first one. And I think the story gets deeper. The characters get more rich. We get to learn more about them. And like Pony's not just like L. Bryan's love interest and the girl he knew since childhood. Like now she's becoming her own person. Like she's the magic user. And like there's all this other stuff that's going on. I don't want to directly spoil. But like she's becoming more of a person. L. Bryan's not just this knight type character anymore. He's like all the because after he trained with the elves, he came out basically being Gary Stu, really. Like, and he kind of does continue that, but there's a little more to it, like with his interaction with people again, and kind of trying to get off the elf kind of thing, the elf high he's been on for years. So there's more development of these characters, and like they feel like more fleshed out. Even Avalon, even though he's dead, like his martyrdom and his sacrifice and everything, all of the influence that has, that influenced the church and just the world around him, like it continues even then. So it's like we lost Avalon as a character, but we still have him. So apart from the characters continuing to be really good and getting actually a lot better, the world building gets a bit better. It's a little deeper and it's a little more into the church. So we kind of learn more about that because that's kind of the central setup of the world building in this story. Like the rest of the world really is just generic fantasy, but the difference comes in the characters' interactions and the way they play off each other and the way they interact with the world, because obviously those are the places you got to make your world unique, especially if it's something familiar. So R.A. Salvatore does a great job with that. Like Brad Warden is a centaur, and like just his entire jovial nature is really cool. Like because a lot of centaurs, they're very bookish and a lot like very learned in my experience and stuff. So they're not very just jovial, fun kind of like because he's almost more like a faun in a way. Like he kind of behaves more like a faun or a satyr, I would think. So it's like a lot of fun to see that kind of interpretation kind of melded onto a totally different type of creature. And that's really cool. So I like that kind of stuff, and it continues to be really good. And the what we learn more about the 12 are like they're because at first I just kind of wrote them off as like almost a Tolkien-esque kind of elf species or whatever, but like they're a lot of fun, and just the design of them, they're being much smaller and their wings aren't really being for flight, but like it gives them a little lift or whatever, but not really actual flight and stuff. Like the way they make their weapons and stuff is really cool. Some of this from like the previous book, but like all of that stuff is really cool. Just the way he creates these creatures and he adds his own flavor to this very familiar type of world, it just hooks you. And it like I know it definitely is going to live with me as one of my favorite fantasy series. Like, and for this review, actually, I don't think I really even need to go into spoilers because I was able to get into fairly clean detail about the stuff I really liked, and without even spoiling anything. So I think that's really cool. Can I think of anything fun to spoil? I mean, the main guy from the church who doesn't like Giuseppe because she has the stones. The church has assassins. That's really cool. So I guess I can talk about that a little bit. They have what they call brothers of justice, and their literal jobs, they're basically assassins, and it's really really cool. And yeah, so apart from that, the story is just pretty much really straightforward. It's there's a good amount of little politicking in there, but it's not like very boring. It's not just exposition dumps or info dumps or anything like that. It's a lot of fun. I really dig it and I enjoyed it, and I definitely recommend it. The entire series, like I said in the review of the first book, it's kind of similar to Mistborn in that it breaks up into two eras. This first trilogy takes place, within O'Brien and Giuseppe and all their time frame, and then it jumps to a different generation in the second trilogy. So that ought to be a lot of fun. So join me again next time when I talk about the third book. And for the third book, I'm going to probably do a huge breakdown of the entire series, or at least the entire first part of the trilogy, and what I think about it and how I think it works as a fantasy series. Have you read the Demon Wars saga or the Demon Wars trilogy, these first three books in the series? If you have, let me know in the comments down below. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I will talk to you all next time. Peace.